All right, good morning. We're going to open up this formal session of the Yamhill County Board of Commissioners on July 31st at 10:09 a.m. And Commissioner Stewart, you want to loosen the flag salute?
The flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you for that. We have our calendar session. Is there any changes?
None.
I don't think so.
Item D is public comment. If you have a public comment, raise your hand. And if you're online, raise your virtual hand. If we come to an item that you want to make a public comment on, just raise your hand if you're in the audience. Moving on to item E is department updates. There is none. F is work session. There's no work sessions today. G is consent agenda. We have some minutes. And I would move approval. Is there any further discussion?
None.
None.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to H is old business. H1 is consideration of approval of a board order and findings in the matter of upholding the Planning Commission's decision to approve the planning docket S-02-24, a subdivision application for tax lots 4411-01300 and 4411-01301. Applicant is Town Investments LLC. This is continued from June 26th. I would make a motion.
Okay.
Any further discussion?
None from me. Do we have
No.
anything from the?
Do you want to add
Staff.
anything to it, Ken, or are we good to go?
No.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, no worries. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Now we're on to I, other business. I1's consideration of approval of agreement number 44300-000449294 between Yamhill County and the Oregon Health Authority for the intoxicated driver program in the amount of $100,116 retroactive to July 1st, 2025 through June 30, 2027.
I would move approval.
Motion's been made. Any further discussion?
None.
None. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to item I2 is consideration of approval of agreement number 44300-000430099 between Yamhill County and the Oregon Health Authority for problem gambling prevention services, A&D 80 services in the amount of $189,400 retroactive to July 1st, 2025 through June 30, 2027.
I would move approval.
Motion's been made. Any further discussion?
Just one question. What is A&D 80 services? Do you know? Commissioner
Alcohol
Stewart?
and drug.
Alcohol and drug.
And it was actually discontinued from the original funding, and it was reimbursed at another A&D from A&D 84 to A&D 81, and they reduced the amount by 91,000. So they are getting a reduction of funding as a result of the way they changed the
Okay,
programmatic element, I would imagine, the actual grant number.
thank you for the clarification.
Cool. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Item I3 is consideration of approval of the contract renewal to the master subscription agreement between Yamhill County and Relias Learning, Board Order 17-288, increasing the annual amount to $66,808.69, effective August 1st, 2025 through July 31st, 2026.
I would move approval.
Motion's been made. Any further discussion?
None from me.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to item I4 is consideration of approval of a lease between Yamhill County Health and Human Services and Vincent and Dana Hayworth Revocable Living Trust in the not to exceed amount of $545,268, retroactive to July 1st, 2025 through June 30, 2030.
I just want to add one note. When these apartments were built, they really are very nice. And we know that because we have a master lease, it could be something, if we couldn't afford it, we could go ahead and then the Hallworths could use this as a market rate apartments. But it's being used for people with severe and persistent mental health issues and transitional. So it's been a great project. So I'd move approval.
Thank you for that. Any further discussion?
None.
None? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Item I5 is consideration of approval of an intergovernmental agreement between Yamhill County and the Oregon Youth Authority for prevention, basic services, and diversion services in the not to exceed amount of $568,469, retroactive to July 1st, 2025 through June 30, 2027.
This is to keep kids out of placement with Oregon Youth Authority, and there is a brand new director as of yesterday for the Oregon Youth Authority. His name is Michael Tessine, and he comes from Colorado. So I'd move approval.
Motion's been made. Any further discussion?
None.
None.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Item I6, consideration of approval of a intergovernmental agreement PO-15000-0004961A between Yamhill County and the State of Oregon Department of Revenue for ORMAP grant funds to establish GIS digital boundaries for taxing districts in the amount of $60,000 effective upon full execution through July 31st, 2026. I would move approval. Is there any further discussion?
None.
None. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. That brings us to J, public hearings. And I will open up this public hearing at 10:16 on July 31st. Is there any abstentions by members of the board?
None.
None.
None here either. Are there any objections from the parties to the jurisdiction of the board to hear the matter before it? Seeing none. Does any board member need to announce and state on the record the substance of any ex parte contact or site visits?
None.
None.
Same here. All right, Ken, you want to read your statement?
Yes. Oregon law requires that persons who attend a land use hearing be advised of certain rights and duties before the hearing begins. First, ORS 197.797 requires that we list the applicable substantive criteria that must be met in order for the county to approve the application. Those standards will be listed in a moment by the county planner as part of the staff report. Testimony, arguments, and evidence must be directed towards the standards for approval. Second, the raise it or waive it rule. Under Oregon law, any issue that might be raised in an appeal of the county's decision in this matter must be raised before the record of this hearing is closed. Failure to raise an issue accompanied by statements or evidence sufficient to afford the decision makers and the parties an opportunity to respond to the issue precludes appeal to the board based on that issue. Third, and this is directed to the applicant, under ORS 197.796, failure of the applicant to raise constitutional or other issues relating to proposed conditions of approval, again with sufficient specificity to allow the county to respond to the issue, precludes an action for damages in circuit court. Finally, I will note that under Oregon law, and because this is the initial evidentiary hearing on this matter, any participant, that is anyone who submits oral or written testimony during this hearing may, before the record is closed, request an opportunity to present additional evidence, arguments, or testimony regarding the application. The request must be made prior to the time the chair announces that the hearing is closed.
All right, thank you very much. Lance, staff report?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The applicable approval criteria are provided in ORS 215.452, as well as sections 402.02H and 1101.02 of the Yamhill County zoning ordinance. The staff report follows. The subject parcel is located in the EF 80 zone and is currently being farmed with approximately 29 acres planted to vineyard, several more acres dedicated to an orchard. There's also an apiary and hay fields on the property. All of the surrounding properties are located in the exclusive farm use district, and land use in the surrounding area is predominantly agricultural with some rural residential uses as well. Farm use in the surrounding area appear to include vineyards, livestock pasturage, and some grass seed and hay production. The applicant is requesting approval for the phased development of a wine production facility, a winery, and tasting room on a tract that has at least 15 acres of wine grapes planted on site. The winery proposed as phase 1 of the development will be located in an existing agricultural building located along the front property line that runs parallel to Northeast Morelli Drive right-of-way. The winery and tasting room proposed as phase 2 of the development will be located in a new purpose-built structure that will be located approximately 100 feet from the southwest property line. A single-family dwelling was permitted and built under a Measure 49 final order, which will be located near the winery and tasting room proposed in phase 2 and will be used by a caretaker. There's also an existing single-family dwelling located on an adjacent lot owned by the applicant that was approved for use as a bed and breakfast by the Board of Commissioners in 2023 per docket C-21-22 and Board Order 23-289. Concerns about water have been raised during this land use process, which is a recurring topic, and while staff is sympathetic to the concerns regarding the responsible management of water, this matter is outside of our jurisdiction. In Oregon, ORS 536.220 requires that water use, water management, and water allocation matters are strictly under the jurisdiction of the Oregon Department of Water Resources. Therefore, any concerns about water use and water management are best directed to the District Water Master in Salem. And that concludes the staff report.
Thank you very much. Which brings us to the applicant's case. Is the applicant here? Good morning.
Good morning.
State your name and address.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Mike Gilardi. I am the applicant, Steppen Families Legal Counsel. And just for the record, my office address is 4710 Village Plaza Loop, Suite 165 in Eugene, 97401. A little bit of a technical issue here. I think that the link that we were sent in the public notice is a different link than the Zoom for the main meeting. And so we're trying to get the applicant on the video. So you might have to bear with us for a minute here.
So is somebody working on that right now?
I just found out about it, and also I thought we were going to be the last item on the agenda. So
I think they just.
okay, looks like we're good.
Okay, cool.
All right, so Quinn Steppen, the applicant, is here. He'd like to speak to you, and then you'll hear more from me.
Good morning. I am Quinn Steppen. My wife, Debbie, and I are the owners of the Steppen Family Reserve, which bought the Duvere Vineyard in 2018. Debbie and I had a vision for the property when we acquired it and have been making investments consistent with that vision. We enjoy our time in Yamhill and hope to spend more time in the future, and it becomes a destination for our children and grandchildren for generations. On site, we have built a barn, doubled the size of the vineyard, restored the oak grove, built a house and a caretaker cottage. The caretaker cottage was not in our original envision, but was added to facilitate the short-term rental of the main house when our friends and family are not using it. Our primary business is and will remain selling grapes, although we have begun to sell wine to family and friends. Tony Reinders makes the majority of our wine for us in Carlton. If we make some of our wine at our own winery, we can get alcohol licenses to sell our wine more broadly in other states. Granting phase 1 of our permit request will allow us to make a small amount of wine in an existing agricultural building with no visitor activities or minimal water use. Depending on how the market responds to our wines, the time and effort required to sell our wines, and its profitability, we may want to build a traditional winery and tasting room consistent with the current laws and regulations for people that own at least 15 acres of vineyard. As there is significant competition to sell wine in the Willamette Valley and actually in just our neighborhood, we anticipate focusing our efforts in Illinois, our sales efforts in Illinois and Florida. We do not anticipate having significant retail traffic at our location and would rarely consider hosting a large event. In our first 7 years of ownership, we have hosted one large event, and it was for a grape customer for which we requested and received a permit to have that event from Yamhill County. We will work with Yamhill County to get approval of any phase 2 winery construction and ensure it meets existing requirements and aesthetically complements the current environment. We have tried to be good neighbors and stewards of our property. We hope today's hearing will help clarify our plans and resolve any misunderstanding with our neighbors. Thank you. And Mike has helped us with our winery permit, and he'd like to say a few words.
Good morning again, commissioners. Again, Mike Gilardi for the record. Mainly, I'm here this morning to answer your questions and to listen to the appellants, understand their concerns, and to respond as appropriate. In the meantime, so I want to make sure we reserve our rebuttal time at the end of the hearing. In the meantime, I'll just real briefly outline the package of materials that we submitted to you all yesterday. There's a letter from Mr. Steppen, which reflects the testimony that he just gave this morning. And then there's a letter from me that responds to the issues that the opponents have raised and provides some evidence to support the things that we say or that I say in my letter. The main concern seems to be about the possibility of big events on the property, like weddings and concerts. And I just want to clarify that wineries are not able to have those kinds of events unless they get a second layer of permitting. And we're not seeking that second layer of permitting, and the conditions that are imposed on the permit by the staff prohibit us from having those kind of events. So I think there's a little bit of a misconception there, and I hope that kind of alleviates a lot of the concern that the neighbors have. Second issue that has been raised, as the staff explained, is about the water. And we've provided some data that shows what the water use can be expected to be at the winery, which is very modest. We're looking at a peak daily water use at the winery of about 130 gallons a day. That's if they moved all the production that they currently have offsite and they moved it all onto the property as phase 2, as Mr. Steppen said. So 130 gallons a day for the wine production. And then if the tasting room is 1,500 square feet, which is we've committed that it wouldn't be any bigger than that. Based on formulas that have been developed for visitors at other local wineries, we can see that that's about 378 gallons a day on a peak Saturday in May. So you're talking about roughly 500 gallons a day peak water use. That's 1/10 of the 5,000 gallons per day that are allowed as of right at permit exempt wells.
But you're
under
not
state rule.
applying for a tasting room, right?
Tasting room is part of the phase 2 development. So
But right now in front of us is not a tasting room, correct?
phase 1, there's no tasting room. It's just wine production in the existing agricultural building, as Mr. Steppen said. We're asking for approval to develop the phase 2 later, and all part of that will be developing the specific design, seeking all the building permits for that, doing a traffic management plan, working with the various departments in the county to make sure that that's all done according to the rules. So does that answer your question, Commissioner?
It does, but I just want to be clear that today you're phase 1, which has nothing to do with the tasting room.
The permit that we're seeking, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say the permit that they are seeking does have the tasting room. It's just that it will be phase 2. So you are looking at both the winery and the tasting room.
Okay.
So again, the water use in the winery and the tasting room is expected to be very modest. It's well within what's allowed at any permit exempt well for commercial industrial use in the state. And as staff explained, there aren't any additional county regulations on that water use. The only water resource, water supply protection rules in the county are about protecting municipal water supplies from competing land uses. I think there's a little bit of confusion about that in one of the appeals. The last issue is traffic. Certainly, we understand the neighbors' concerns about the road. And again, we're anticipating that even the phase 2, it's a modest use. It's not a big retail facility. It's not an event center. And Steppen's committed to working with Public Works and the fire department to make sure that the road meets standards. There's about 40 feet of right of way close to the highway, or excuse me, 55, it's like 40 to 55 feet wide, the right of way. And this is in our letter. And so there's room to expand the existing roadway if needed. And so it's feasible to do that. And again, we've agreed to create the traffic management plan and to study that once the designs for phase 2 are set. And then also we've agreed to follow the best practices at local wineries in terms of communications with customers, signage, the website. When people book tasting appointments, you can put in the written materials to explain to drive slowly and carefully, and the speed limit that we'd like people to maintain. I understand that that's been pretty effective at other local wineries, so we certainly want to follow those best practices. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you have now or later on rebuttal.
Yeah. Ken, phase 2 still going to require more layers of approvals?
It won't require a land use approval, but it will require things like building
Site
permits
plan.
and septic permits, et
Okay.
cetera. So yes.
Any questions?
No, thank you.
How'd you come up with 130 gallons a day for the winery? That seems conservative.
It's based on 6 gallons of water per gallon of wine, which is the guideline that's used in Napa County. Now, how much water a given winery can use can vary widely depending on how the conservation efforts of that winery. You can get it down to like 1.5 gallons. 6 gallons is considered, and there's an article in the materials we submitted that reflects that. But 6 gallons is sort of a rough figure for planning that's been accepted elsewhere.
Yeah. It still seems a little light.
Okay.
Yeah, but I guess that doesn't. They're
Sure.
that you're
I
trying to
mean,
get done, yeah.
even if we're far off on that, we're still
Still well within your-
we're still well below the 5,000 gallon a day.
Yeah.
Like I said, the calculations that we have in our package put us at you sort of worst case scenario maximum assumptions, you're at 500 gallons a day max. So 1/10 of the 5,000.
Commissioner? Any
No, I
questions?
just regarding the rainwater capture and the purchase of water in the past. So this has been an ongoing and established, if we want to put the water issue to rest,
Yeah.
that would be kind of good to remember, but that it appears that there was some misunderstanding on the appellant's side on the whole water issue, even though we don't have jurisdiction, as Lance pointed out, but we always have to take that into account.
That's right, Commissioner. Yeah, and we've tried to explain the water storage and the rainwater capture that's on site, and I think one of the appellants has sort of put some written communications about that into the record.
Okay, thank you.
All right, up next. Up next, we have testimony in support of the applicant. If you're online, raise your virtual hand. Seeing none. All right, now we have the appellant's case. Is there anybody here for the appellant? All right. Okay. Good morning. Name and address, please.
Amy Luttrell. My address is 17270 Northeast Morelli Drive. My husband and I are the adjacent landowners to the southeast of this property. We own approximately 40 acres that abuts next to The second, well, the whole property, but the second phase part of the tasting room and parking lot. So I have lots of questions. I have lots of concerns. Their new cottage that they built runs on the property line. Their driveway does, and then the cottage sets on the backside. In the mid, I can see it from my house. My house is only about probably 45 feet from the fence or property line between the Steffens property and ours. We didn't build the house. We bought it as it is, the existing structures, property, all of that. I guess I have a lot of issues. Well, main issue is that they built this house and it's supposed to be a private home. And then they turned it into an Airbnb. And no one lives on site. No one lived on site. There was never a second home. They've built a second home. It's a cottage. No one currently lives in the second home. They can claim all that they want. They do. I live there. They have to drive next to my home. There's no way for me not to see what's going on at the house. There is a caretaker occasionally that comes and stays, but they rent this house out almost every single weekend. The house up on the hill, the cottage, whatever you want to call it, their Airbnb. It's a very large home and no one lives there full time. No one, like I said, Father's Day weekend, they were there 18 minutes. So that's the existing conditional use permit that they got for their existing thing that they applied for. The issue is that now we have this habitual situation where they're not already following the rules to the existing problem that they have or the existing operation that they're doing. And now they want to ramp it up. So now we want a wine tasting and a wine tasting room or a factory. I don't know what you want to call it, but they're going to make wine on site. I have no problem with agriculture. I'm an FFA supporter. I am a 4-H leader. My child is showing right now at the Yamhill County Fair, and I'm adamant to be here and be present today because this directly affects my family. We have cattle. We raise hay on our property next door. On an average week, I probably have 10 people pull in my driveway thinking that they're going to their thing already. We had to put up a gate. We had a guy trying to go to their rental, which ended up being to their cottage while we were loading up to come to the fair into my yard. So I have no faith in anything that they state that's going to be implemented and followed through with when they haven't done it already. So the issue that I have with the water is I'm $18,000 into 2 holding tanks because my well went dry because they're irrigating their orchard and they don't have agricultural water rights to irrigate. So they're capturing water. I don't know how. And I can make some guesses, but I have had long conversations with the water master at Save Oregon over this property. They have olive trees along the county road that there's visible irrigation lines too. They do have a bee farm. It's super cool. Like, I'm not against the agricultural part of the farm. We have a 1-lane narrow county road. There's no ands, ifs, or buts about it. If another car comes, one of the cars has to pull over. This is not there are only 4 houses on our road, and they're whatever you want to call it, they're rental at the top, and then the owner of Saffron Fields, Bill and Diane, they're well, there's the cottage, but no one lives there, and then our house, another neighbor here, they live at the very beginning, literally at the very beginning of the road, but they have those people in their house. There'll be 6 houses. It's a 6-bedroom facility. So they'll rent it out and there'll be 6 couples that rent it because it's thousands of dollars a night to stay there. And then you have those people driving super fast down a road. They've had more than one event up there. And then they had people parked along the side of the road. And the county has extended them an olive branch in this whole process before this. And there's not been any consequence. I'm not trying to be a difficult neighbor, but I did not move out there to have a commercial venue in my yard. The corner of the tasting room on their plan is 147 feet from my bedroom. This is absolutely 100% impactful for my family. And like I said, we own an indoor and outdoor riding arena is on our property. We have cattle, our children raise cattle. That's why we're at the fair. And then we raise hay. And so, like I said, our well, we've struggled with our water. It seems to be righted now, but now they're hauling in water. Literally from my front yard, I can count 9 holding tanks between the cottage, the situation, which is where they would pull in to do their new venue. And then I can't see the tanks, but if I go up the road, I can see the tanks at their storage facility. So they don't have on-site water. And so, like I said, I don't really care even if they manufactured. I'm worried about the water. I'm worried about the fact that the state of Oregon told me they're allowed 5,000 gallons for the tasting room and 5,000 gallons for the winery itself, the processing plant, 10,000 gallons a day. I just want enough water at my house to be able to take a shower every day. We don't even, we do no irrigation. We don't do any lawn irrigation, which is well within my rights, but I don't do that because I don't have the water. And I've never, up until they started developing this property further with these extras like the orchard and the other things, we never had a problem with water. And I'm not saying we ever lived extravagantly with water, but we literally hauled water for an entire summer at thousands and thousands of dollars, and then had to put in holding tanks, and then they're backed up with our well, and all of our cattle that are on site, water out of an approved pond that's on site that was existing. And that's where our cattle water, not that they don't have access to well water, but we shut that completely off at the barn and make them drink out of the pond all summer long because we just don't have an inadequate source. And now we're going to add another tasting room. We already added another house, and now they want to do I don't know how much water it takes to wash a grape or process grapes. I can't imagine it within 100 and something gallons. Like that seems to have been an unreasonable number to me. So, and like I said, I have zero problem with the agricultural use on the site, but I did not sign up for a commercial venue. In their application, it says that they can allow up to 18 events a year. Well, who's to say what an event is? And then they're allowed for donations. They can even do more events. So they could say, I'm not saying they have, but they could say, you can have a wedding here, $10,000 donation. So then what, I have a venue and that it literally in my yard. And then now they're going to host, I can see Saffron Fields, giant fireworks display from my house. I see, I will attend all of the giant ones that are in Yamaha County. I can see from my yard. And then now they're wanting to want one literally in the yard. And they want to, if you look at their application, they're wanting to do it's 90,000 square feet of parking. And in their phase 2, that's all the way to my fence line. It's all the way to the fence line, not the venue itself, the whatever tasting room. It's going to be 100 feet is what it shows on the thing. But the parking lot, they put in their new driveway for their cottage, and it flooded our yard. Not just our property, which is agricultural, but they flooded the yard. We had water 6 inches up to the side of our house. We contacted them. And of course, they had their guy come out and try and fix it. Where are we going to remediate 90,000 square feet of water that's sitting on a parking lot that isn't going to enter my property? So I have a lot of building questions, and
I think those are going to get addressed during phase 2 process, whether, parking lots paved or gravelled or all
Right.
that.
But we're a lower lying property. That's the other thing that hasn't been declared here. This is not an equal level property. We are lower than them.
And there
so it's
are laws
all
that will
law
address
enforcement.
that
So it only
when we
runs
get
one
to
way,
it.
and the only way it can run is onto me.
Yep.
So like I said, and then the traffic, it literally, I don't know that the county has the money to make this into a highway. It's not, it's a single lane gravel road that just has been utilized. And once you get past where they're talking about the second phase and you go to where it's elevated, like Bill and Diane live probably 150 feet higher than I do. And then there's a hump, and then it goes up a really long hill and then turns the corner into where their bed and breakfast or whatever you want to call it is. And so like I say, if you get, more than one car, I passed Bill and he had to pull over, I have to pull over in order to get down the road. And we're not talking commercial vehicles here, we're just talking cars. So like I said, and my house is about 50 feet off of the road, and they've done dust abatement, we've done dust abatement, but I'm putting out money to keep dust out of my house from a commercial venue. So.
All right.
Thank
All right.
you.
Thank you
All
very
right.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Chair, if I may, before you leave.
Ma'am.
Hold on a second. There's a procedural thing. We have green sheets that anybody who was wanting to give testimony today for the hearing, we just ask that you fill this out and you can bring it up here to Bailey. So anybody who's wishing to give testimony, you can come on up, but I'll hand you a green sheet and just ask you fill it out before
before you leave.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right, next up.
Good morning.
Good morning. Name and address, please.
My name is Bill Paolo. I live at 17451 Northeast Morelli Drive. Yam Hill, next door to this Steppen property, actually. I said in my written part of my appeal, I stated that I had no personal animosity towards the Steppens, and I want to reiterate that today. This is not personal to them. They're wonderful people. We've met them. We visited with them. I don't have a personal beef with them. What I do want to draw attention to are a couple things. First is that the development that they've put together with their bed and breakfast at the top of the hill, just not a residence. Their caretaker's home specifically was put there so that if they had people staying in the big home, they could have a caretaker come out and stay there. It is not a residence. The winery itself will not be a residence, and the tasting room will not be a residence. There are no residents on that, just like Amy said. Why that matters as it comes to water, and I know the county is saying at least that they don't have jurisdiction over water. But if you look at, or the Oregon Water Resources definitions for domestic well, it clearly says to service residents, up to 3 residences. There are no residences on that property. So really, technically, neither well that's there meets the definition of a domestic well. And it's incumbent upon the owners really to reclassify those wells, again, under state regulations. And that has not been done that I'm aware of. Now, even though it's outside of the county, those kinds of things, still planning should take that into account. And if they reclassify and start going with commercial, which they should, then it does matter if they're impacting domestic wells on adjacent properties. And that has not been addressed anywhere that I've seen. And on top of that, the letter that was submitted by their attorney actually set up a set of circumstances where he says clearly, we could drill another well on the south end of the property. We don't need another well. I mean, we're having trouble already with water. Now, I've lived in the country. I've lived at that address actually my whole entire life. I understand change. I understand agriculture. I understand sometimes things impact you that you didn't anticipate. That happened to us. And a well that we had just doesn't have the water anymore. I didn't complain about it. I didn't go running to them and say, you owe me a well, or it happens. Sometimes it happens in the country. So at our own expense, of course, we drilled a second well. Now with this added development, we're all a little uneasy about, having that our second well now start to deplete. I mean, the water tables are depleting. I think that's pretty well documented. And if we lose our water, our property value drops horrendously. And that's why I'm sitting here, actually. I understand farmers' rights. I understand the right to farm. I understand all of that. And that works until it impacts a neighbor's rights. I also have farmland, and I'm being impacted negatively by this. And I just can't let it go without having my say. So the other thing that I keep hearing is and I truly believe that Steppens are trying to minimize water use and to be good stewards of the property. I believe all of that. The word that's missing is yet, and what happens if. So even though they say, well, we have no intention of doing these events and stuff, yet would be the proper follow-up, because they could. They're allowed to by law. I mean, they have to get another permit, but they can. So, or if they actually sell this investment of theirs to someone else, they might just chuck the whole thing and say, I don't want to collect rainwater, and I don't care. I don't care what the neighbors say about big events. We'll just have them anyway. I mean, that's how this works. So I'll keep this short. I would conclude all of this by saying that we, on the road, I do need to talk about the road. Amy's absolutely correct. There's no way 2 cars can pass it. Actually, county planning has already acknowledged that by stipulating no parking on Morelli Drive. Well, it begs the question, if you have a parked car and there's not safety and enough room to safely pass with a moving car, why would two moving cars be any different? I mean, there's not enough room on that road. So, and I was also told that the county has no plans of expanding that road. So we're stuck with a one lane road. And I just don't know how we get around that problem. I don't. And the estimates I'm hearing, I believe, are low. I just believe they are. Live there. We go to the tasting rooms. We know what kind of activity goes on there. And I think all of the water use and the number of people coming is a low estimate. So I will conclude all of this simply by saying that they're already producing wine. It's just not on site. So why would it be so important about putting that on site? Really, the quality of the wine doesn't change depending on where it's, because Tony's going to produce their wine. I mean, he just is. So it doesn't matter if it's at his facility or theirs. So there's no real need here to have that facility on site. And the same, I would say, of tasting rooms. There's a lot of tasting rooms in Carlton you can go to from wineries all over the county. They don't have a tasting room on their property. So there's plenty of access to have tasting rooms and wineries. And so I'm going to ask once again that this approval be rescinded, actually. Any
All right.
questions? Any questions? of me?
Questions? Any?
Thank you.
Nope. Thank you.
All right, thanks. Where does this go after we fill it out?
Hand it to Bailey there.
Okay.
All right, come on up, name and address, and then make sure you fill out that green comment card.
You bet. Name is Ko Marai. I'm the owner of 16927 and 16929 Morelli Drive, in Yamhill, also 17240 Laughlin Road, the adjacent property that goes across the creek on the other side from this proposed facilities. I have been in touch with Lance by phone prior to this to try and clear up what I thought were not appealable issues. But I don't know that they've been addressed. So I have two comments and one administrative issue that I want to raise. So my two are repetitive, and according to your rules here, excess repetitiveness is the same nightmare you'd like to minimize. So I've been there less time than Bill, more time than the Luttrells. I've been there since 2000. And I knew the prior owners of Danny and Amy's place. They were also horse people and farm people. I have horses. I grow hay and sell hay. So access to that road, and especially the front end of it, sadly, right at where my driveway is, currently is a 12 to 14 inch sinkhole that's approximately 32 feet across. So there is no way to get in without taking a bump. I don't care if you drive a smart car, you can't get into our street. Small as it is, one lane, without dropping your car 9 to 12 inches. So don't drive a expensive fancy car in there if you're going to the winery. It's not going to be real good. And I've been told by Lance that the roads and other group is the ones who deal with it. But as Bill said, there's no real plans to do much of anything to improve that. So we just add more cars, more construction trucks, more material trucks. That is not getting any better. So it's not really a positive thing to have this happen. I don't know the applicant, don't know the family. I don't have any grudge against them, but it's just a matter of everyday life. Everybody's got to go to work. Everybody's got to get there. You know, I'm trying to be at the other end of it. He's talking about having children and grandchildren. Well, the fact is that a lot of times what parents do, and I've seen it in other land use all throughout Yamhill, when the next generation inherits that property, it's at least a 50-50 odds that they're going to say, nah, I don't want to do it the same way. I want to do it differently. I've seen it over and over again in Yamhill. I fly hot air balloons, so I talk to a lot of landowners before I get any place, okay? And the difference between the first generation and the second generation and the third is rather dramatic, okay? So I am in agreement with Bill. Just because the current family has the best intentions and they're trying their best does not mean that that's how it's going to go. And I also have water issues. I'm on the other side of the creek, no pun intended. And so my water drainage issue is from a different part, but we have the same aquifer problems. 4 years ago, I had to start trucking in almost all my water except for 2 months a year because of the water table drop. Every 14 days, 3,000 gallons trucked in. I'm really not interested in anybody else doing anything to help lower water tables. I'm so not interested, it's not even funny. And the last issue that I have is in the actual conditions that have been tentatively approved. And I brought this to Lance's attention. I just would like some confirmation it's been addressed. Item 15 says that this agritourism and commercial events section is for malt beverages in a brewery, not a winery. I don't want the foot traffic of a brewery compared to a winery coming down that road. Now, the whole rest of it reads winery. I'm assuming it's a cut and paste error. But it's in the printed conditions, so unless that's been amended, that would need to be amended. Those are my comments.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Is there any other comments or testimony for the appellant's case? Seeing none, is there any other opposition to the application? Seeing none, public agency report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There are no public agency responses in the record.
Thank you. Rebuttal by the applicant.
Mr. Chair, can I ask just a quick question? Where is this property located in Yamhill County?
It's in Yamhill.
The town of Yamhill?
Well, outskirts rural.
I got it, but I was not familiar with the road they were talking.
Yeah, it's Highway 240.
Oh, thank you. Okay.
Welcome back.
Hello again. Again, Mike Chillardi for the record. I'm going to say a few things, then I'm going to give Mr. Steppen the last word. What I heard from the opponents is two things. One, a lot of factual allegations that are not accurate. And so I want to clarify the record on those things. And then second, a lot of frustration about prior permits that the county has issued on this property, particularly the home occupation permit for the short-term rental. That was something that the board approved almost 2 years ago now. That was a public land use process. The neighbors all had an opportunity to participate in that. They chose not to. Now they're not allowed, as a matter of land use law, to what we call collaterally attack that permit in this proceeding. And I think a lot of what is going on is, again, it's trying to indirectly challenge permits that have been issued, which is not appropriate. So factual issues. First of all, there was an allegation that the caretaker doesn't actually live there. Now, that was the subject of a complaint that was made to the county enforcement staff. We were not able to see who made that complaint, but certainly we can guess. And the county enforcement staff came out and visited the property and investigated that and concluded that that allegation was not accurate. I did a public records request to get that information, and I put it in the record, so you can see that. Again, the idea that, well, they're not following the rules is not accurate. That home occupation permit was, we went through the process, a robust land use process. The board approved that permit in 2023. Again, we talked about the water issue, and again, there was an allegation, and we understand this allegation was also made to the water master that there was, illegal irrigation happening on the property, that groundwater was being used to irrigate the vineyard or the orchard without a water right, which is not true. Again, it's rainwater capture and storage, and we've talked to the water master, and the water master has confirmed that method of irrigation is appropriate, and a water right's not required for that. So the idea about illegal water use, that's not true. Again, there's a discussion about having 18 events a year, and I think that's just a misreading of the permit decision. What the permit document has is it has the text of the statute that governs wineries in it. And what the statute says is that this type of permitted use winery, you can have up to 18 agritourism events if you get another layer of permit. We're not seeking that layer of permit. The staff's decision does not allow those events under this permit because we don't have that second layer. So again, the 18 events is not accurate either. There's also discussion from Ms. Luttrell about, the distances between the Phase 2 winery and the Luttrell property. And so I want to point you to some mapping that we submitted yesterday. It should be at the end of the package that we supplied.
Yeah, very back page.
It should be the last 2 pages of the package from, yes, Exhibit G. And you can see that there's, and there was this idea that, there's this enormous parking area. And that's just because there's a rectangle that we've reserved to say the Phase 2 facilities are going somewhere in this rectangle. And where specifically they go is going to be a matter of the Phase 2 planning, but we did commit that the tasting room is going to be no more than 1,500 square feet. So it's a small area within this rectangle of where, the winery and the tasting room facilities would actually go. And then the parking that is needed to support that is based on the size of the tasting room. So it's not a giant parking lot. It's going to be, a much smaller parking lot using the formula that's in the county's rules for how many spaces that you need. So what we've done in these maps, though, is we've said, okay, here's the worst case scenario if the facilities are, on that sort of southwestern edge closest to Luttrell property. It's a minimum of 250 feet to the dwelling. Okay, what the state statute says is you have to have a 100-foot setback from the neighboring property line. So at the very minimum, there'll be 100 feet from the property line. At a very minimum, it's 250 feet from the Luttrell dwelling. It's 300-foot minimum to their outdoor storage area and 330 feet to the barn. So the distances that were described in Ms. Luttrell's testimony are not accurate. And then the last thing that Ms. Luttrell mentioned was an allegation that Stepan had flooded her property when the access road went in. Well, that was in May of this year. That's when we had those record storms. We had 10 inches of rain in May. So not disputing that there was some flooding on her property, but definitely dispute that it was caused by Stepan's road construction. And then the last thing I'll mention in response to Mr. Palo, I don't quite understand the distinction that he's making between wells for residences versus commercial wells. Either way, the state water law allows up to 5,000 gallons a day in a permit exempt well, whether that well is used for residential use or whether it's used for commercial or industrial use. So I think with all due respect, he's making a distinction without a difference there. And then I'll happy to answer any other questions that you all have. If not, I'll turn it back to Mr. Stepan.
Just real quick, the part of the rebuttal packet that you gave us, the water supply and the rain collection, is
Sure.
that intended also for when Phase 2 is implemented, that you're still going to truck in or are you going to use gallonage from the well?
That's to be determined. Now, there is a condition in the staff approval that says you got to show that you have a water source for your building, which, of course you want to have a water source. It's possible that they could use the existing northern well, which serves the main house. It's possible that they could, improve the well that's on the southern portion of the property or drill a new well. They're entitled to do that. Or it's possible that they could use purchased water, or they could, certainly they can't use rainwater collection for drinking water. And we're certainly going to have to meet public drinking water standards. But there's a range of options, and it's something that certainly we're going to have to figure out. And, I think the key point for this part of the process is to show it's feasible for us to have a secure supply that meets the rules.
And I would comment that in the current case for the cottage, the economics say it was cheaper to install and buy water than to take the chance to drill for water in an area which has low water pressure and has a poor aquifer. So I would guess that we would most likely purchase water or install additional rain capture. And if you have a rain capture system, you need to treat it differently than you have well water as well. So, but unless the environment changed, it'd be unlikely that we would take water from a well.
All right, thank you. Quinn, do you want to go ahead and wrap up your guys' testimony?
Yeah, and let me just comment on water. We believe that rainwater capture was a sustainable, more economical way to support the activities that we wanted a site. One of the first things we did when we bought the property is to buy or build the barn. And as part of that barn in 2019, we put in the rain capture system. And we've done that again with the caretaker cottage to support all the agricultural use that we have. And again, as we said in the document that Bill submitted, which was a correspondence from me saying that, we're doing the same thing at the caretaker cottage as well. There's a lot of talk, a lot of noise about water. But the vast majority of the water that we're using at our site is all coming from rainwater. We do have a well that we're actively using today to support the residents on the main residence. That's the only well water that we're using today.
All right, thank you. Any other questions from commissioners?
None.
None?
No.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
That brings us to staff recommendations.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This request is for the phased development of a wine production facility and tasting room on a tract that has at least 15 acres of wine grapes planted. I want to note that in processing a permitted use winery application, we are required to look at specific issues like road access, sufficient parking areas, adequate noise and visual buffering, and similar items. Based on the information in the record, staff finds that the request for the phased development of a winery and tasting room complies with the Oregon Revised Statute and County Zoning Ordinance standards and recommends approval with the 20 conditions noted in the staff report and an additional condition that staff would like to propose to address some of the drainage concerns. I'm happy to read those conditions as amended if the board would like.
Yes, please.
Recommended condition number 1, the phase 1 and phase 2 developments shall substantially conform to the site map submitted with the application. Condition number 2, prior to issuance of Oregon Liquor and Cannabis Commission permits or the operation of the winery and tasting room, the applicant shall obtain all necessary building, septic, plumbing, and electrical permits and inspections from the Hill County Planning Department. Condition number 3, prior to issuance of building and/or Oregon Liquor and Cannabis Commission permits, the applicant shall obtain all necessary authorizations, inspections, and permits from the county sanitarian for installation of a new septic system or connection to an existing septic system to serve the winery and/or tasting room. Condition number 4, prior to issuance of building and/or Oregon Liquor and Cannabis Commission permits, the applicant shall provide evidence of a water right, permit, or long-term service agreement to bring in water from another site, or evidence shall be provided indicating the tasting room will not exceed the allowable daily usage for a permit-exempt well under ORS 537.545. Condition number 5, prior to issuance of building permits, the water supply and access shall be required to meet the Yamhill Fire Department standards and conditions. Condition number 6, a traffic and emergency management plan shall be prepared by the applicant, approved by the Yamhill Fire Department and Public Works Department, and then provided to the Planning Department prior to hosting any events on the subject lot. Condition number 7, the winery shall produce no more than 50,000 gallons of wine annually. Condition number 8, the tasting room may be open for daily tastings from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. Condition number 9, the number of persons allowed in any portion of the tasting room shall not exceed the maximum number of persons allowed pursuant to the occupancy permit for such portion of the tasting room if applicable. Condition number 10, a parking area shall be established and permanently maintained for as long as the winery and/or tasting room are operating so that there is a minimum of 1 parking space for each employee working a maximum shift and 1 parking space per 100 square feet of wine tasting area pursuant to section 1007 of the YCZO. Condition number 11, parking shall not be permitted on the Northeast Morelli Drive public right-of-way. Condition number 12, any artificial lighting which may be provided shall be placed, shielded, or deflected so as not to shine or create glare onto adjacent dwellings or create excessive glare along adjacent roads. Condition number 13, the use may have 1 on-premise sign of not more than 24 square feet pursuant to section 1006 of the YCZO, subject to permit approval. Condition 14, the use of outdoor amplified music or sound shall be prohibited. The use of outdoor amplified music or sound shall be prohibited. Condition number 15, agritourism or other commercial events per subsection 2D of ORS 215.449 are not authorized without additional approval.
And that should be modified to 215.452.
Yeah, agritourism or other commercial events per subsection 2D of ORS 215.252 are not authorized without additional approval. Agritourism or other commercial events, including outdoor concerts for which admission is charged, educational, cultural, health, or lifestyle events, facility rentals, celebratory gatherings, and other events at which the promotion of wine produced in conjunction with the winery is a secondary purpose of the event.
Lance, I'm going to interrupt you there real quick. Before you go on to 16, is there an ORS for that one? That we can just state that one? I'm assuming you're going to read the whole thing.
Yes, we were just gonna,
Modified?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. In addition, condition 16, thank you, Chair. In addition to producing and distributing wine, this winery may do the uses listed in ORS 215.452 sub 2. These uses are listed in the staff report, but I won't read them all here.
Thank you.
Due to the length. Condition number 17, prior to operation of the winery and tasting room, the applicant shall obtain all permits required by the Oregon Liquor and Cannabis Commission and the Department of Agriculture. And condition 18 is where we will propose the new condition addressing some of the neighbors' concerns. And new condition 18, prior to issuance of building permits for phase 2, the applicant shall submit a drainage plan to serve the new winery and tasting room structure and parking area. The drainage plan shall be prepared by a certified engineer and shall be submitted to and approved by the Public Works Department. Condition number 19.
You adding to 18 or you adding a new condition?
I'm adding a new condition.
Okay. All right.
Yep. The construction of any additional structures for use as part of the winery or tasting room are not evaluated or approved for the phase 1 and phase 2 development stages, or substantial modification to the footprint of the winery or tasting room, or change in use of the current structures shall require the submission and approval of a site design review application. Condition number 20, this tentative approval shall expire 1 year from the date of this letter unless all conditions have been met and the use has been initiated. However, this does not apply to phase 2 so long as phase 1 has been initiated prior to the 1-year expiration date. Condition 21, modification of any of the above conditions requires approval under section 1202.05 of the Yamhill County zoning ordinance. Violation of any of the above conditions may result in revocation of the site design review with the process detailed in section 1202.07 and 1202.08 of the Yamhill County zoning ordinance. And that concludes the recommended conditions of approval.
Thank you very much. All right, at this time, I'm going to close the hearing and then we'll deliberate. All right. Commissioner King, you want to kick us off with any questions?
Well, lots of water concern, but it doesn't sound like that is really under our jurisdiction at all. But one thing that I heard from neighbors was road, and road concerns. Having lived on a 1-lane gravel road, I know how difficult that can be. Is there anything that the county can do from that point of view of, obviously, we're not going to be able to widen it, but speed limit signs, so on. I mean, I don't know what the speed limit rule is. The way that I understand it is that there's not really one, and people treat it as such, that don't live on the road. So would there be anything that we could do from that point of view as a speed limit sign, or that the neighbors or Quinn can do to help mitigate some of that, other than just on their bookings? Because I know that it's not real. People drive fast on gravel roads so long as they're not driving a Porsche or something to that effect. So that would be one of my major concerns that I heard from questions that I have from the neighbors.
In the past, we have worked with applicants who are willing to work with Public Works to have a speed limit sign placed. I can't think of a time where we've placed a condition that requires Public Works to do that. But if an applicant's willing to work with Public Works, we would encourage them to do so.
One other thing that, before we issue any building permit, it's required that the local fire department inspect the road and make sure that it's brought up to emergency vehicle standards, which requires turnouts at certain distances. So even though we're not requiring the road to be widened, in effect, it sometimes ends up being widened because of that, because the local fire department can require that before we issue a building permit.
So there are portions that could potentially be widened for turnouts for cars.
Yeah.
So if a fire engine needs to get by, but what about speed and all that kind of stuff?
Speed, we haven't regulated through the land use in the past. And
It's
I
more of
believe
an
there's a whole-
ODOT.
More of an ODOT.
Yeah, we can advise speed, but we can't change speed limits.
Okay.
So I'm looking at the requested building site and the distances from the Luttrell barn and the Luttrell house. If they end up kind of towards that lower corner developing there, is there standards that start come into play where there has to be like a natural barrier of trees or shrubs or something? Or as long as they stay within that?
No, there isn't any, but if you wanted to require them, it's up to the board.
Okay.
So did I understand correctly, that there was in other words, the state required 100-foot setbacks, but that there was a recommendation to make it 200, twice that? Did I misunderstand that?
Yeah, the tasting room is required to be 100 feet from the property line, and they've shown on their area that they've identified for development that it's going to be more than that. And if you're measuring also from the Luttrell dwelling itself, it's actually significantly more. I think that was the 250 feet they were talking about.
Okay, thank you.
All right. That's all I have for questions.
Yeah.
I would recommend, I'm assuming the applicant would probably be okay with this, but maybe a visual barrier of some form of tree or shrub, maybe along the driveway to address one of the concerns, the visual, so that the Luttrells don't see, I guess, the winery, or maybe might even keep down some dust that they come in and out on the potential phase 2 winery road. I guess I'd recommend that. And Commissioner King's maybe advisory speed sign, assuming that the right of ways wide enough. I don't know that I'd go changing widths of the road without having the fire department address that. And then I think that will also come up when they apply for phase 2 anyway. So I don't think we have to deal with that right now.
I would also throw in there, I don't think we need to put it in ours, but just as a, you know, having lived on the gravel road and having customers come to my property, the oil dust abatement on the road, I would suggest highly that Quinn pay for some of that, or the lion's share.
Sounds like they were already,
Maybe
doing,
you're
both
already
the neighbors
doing
were
it.
already doing that. So
Yeah, but,
I don't think we'd get into,
I know that's not our purview, but just as a friendly recommendation.
so can I make a motion as simple as approving or upholding the planning director's approval of the on-site design review for the phase development of a wine production facility and tasting room on track that has at least 15 acres of wine grapes planted, applicant, the Steffen Family Reserve, with amended conditions? Okay. Or do you want me to name off the conditions? Okay, perfect. Motion's been made. Any further discussion? None. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Thank you for everybody coming in and listening to that. We're going to move on to our announcements now. Commissioner King.
Me. Yeah.
Oh, do we need to schedule findings?
Yeah, I was gonna ask Mr. Gilardi if he would assist with the findings and whether that would be 2 or 3 weeks.
2 or 3 weeks to write the findings?
Yeah,
About 3.
3 is fine.
Okay.
Okay.
Are we here in 3 weeks? We have
They're-
the 14th or?
They'll be fine with us.
No, we,
2 weeks.
oh, 2 weeks. Okay, yeah.
Well, 3 weeks, yeah.
Perfect. Thank you. All right, kick us off.
All right. We all had a busy weekend, and I was so excited about a sheriff's barbecue. I showed up 2 weeks early in the Yamhill. Read that email wrong, but that was fun. Old Fashioned Festival, spent a bit of time there, parade and fireworks. That was, hometown, love that one. A couple of breakfasts in the morning. Amity really shows up for their fireman breakfast. The line was over an hour wait, so I ended up hanging out for just a little bit, watching the car show, and then went over to Newburgh's Rotary breakfast, pancake feed as well, and had a great time there. I think there's a large concern that I've heard about in the community about some more ICE presence. I do want to reiterate to people who live here that our sheriff is 100% not communicating or assisting in any detentions. After talking with the sheriff at length about this, over and over, he's assured me, and I still believe him. I think that this is much more of a attorney general and governor's office issue that I would raise my concerns to them. There's an executive team, executive board team for the transit with the changes that are happening there. Myself and Brandon Dross, are trying to help with that changeover and just downloading some of Cynthia's brain and what that's going to take for her and her changes that's happening there. So her ask was for some of the board members and executive team to kind of help carry some of that weight. Or Kevin is going to assist as well. Pull up the name here because I can't remember. I met with Oregon Recovery Schools as well, a representative from them. And this is something that former Commissioner Berschauer had asked me to kind of carry on as she left. And so I met with this Recovery High School. They're opening up in Marion County, and would love an opportunity to come and speak to the board soon and potentially put together. I'm going to have some of our stakeholders meet with him as well and myself in the near future, and hopefully be able to talk about the future for Yamhill County. And it's a public school, so Yamhill County residents, students could potentially attend there as well. So I'm excited to see that get off the ground and what it might mean in the future for Yamhill County. That's all I have.
Great, thank you. Sure. Last Thursday, had the opportunity to tour a couple different businesses. It was Skyline Tour. I don't know if you've ever been out towards Booth Bend on the south side of Mac there, but they've been out there since 1969 building manufactured homes. So that was part of a program with McMinnville Industrial Promotions to bring in 9 businesses in 1969. And it ended up being a pretty successful program, and they were one of them that they brought in, and so they've been here since then. MEDP, our McMinnville Economic Development Partnership, or Patty, is working with the mayor to coordinate McMinnville Made, and so they're going around to all the different businesses in McMinnville to tour those. So yeah, it is quite a good collaboration between the mayor and McMinnville Economic Development Partnership and McMinnville Industrial Promotions. Last Friday was the Old Timers Parade Dayton and Newburgh Old Fashioned Festival. Last 2 of the year. It was a fantastic wrap up to the parade season. Monday, we just pretty much kicked off fair prep, and Wednesday was the first day of fair. And I said this before, but this is the best year that I felt that we were organized enough to where it's going pretty smooth. I was really close last night to where I almost had to drive shuttle bus. Christian plug your ears. But as soon as I got to the parking lot, the shuttle was already making the rounds again. So we got that covered for tonight. Fortunately, it was just a light enough night to where it wasn't too big of a deal. But we have a backup bus driver, and we're going to go pick up that spare bus out at the transit center today. So we'll get that in the mix. So no issues tonight with transit, I promise. Thursday, this was interesting. So Joya put this together. She was emailed by a group out of Hubbard that it's called Canopy with 2 I's at the end, not a Y. And it is an autonomous greenhouse. You can step away from this greenhouse for 2 weeks and it will still operate. If something breaks down, the plants have enough water for 2 weeks. It was a very interesting setup. It's prototype, so they're really just starting to roll this out, but they're looking for a place in McMinnville to do one. And so Joya connected all the dots. And so I went over there and I met with them, and it's very, very interesting. So they're actually going to come over to McMinnville, and we're going to do a little drive tour and just kind of show maybe some different sites that they could locate this autonomous greenhouse on. When I was there, they were growing basil, and it's this nonstop process. So you can just imagine like a conveyor belt coming in and just automatically seeding little plugs, and then the plugs get transferred by a robotic arm into this carrier that has the water, and it goes up and around in this greenhouse on this trail, and it just grows. And as it's ready in the cycle, and then the robotic arm comes off, grabs the full plant, puts it on the conveyor, and it comes out into this finished room where it dumps off into a tote. And that's where the idea of your fresh market would come in to this refrigerated area and grab their produce that is fresh for the day. It is this nonstop cycle of start to finish. It's very amazing. If they ever do get going in a bigger capacity, it's definitely something that I think everybody would enjoy touring. Wednesday, first day of the fair, we went over that. So tonight, I get to be a judge for the Pee Wee 4-H. And I've never judged an animal before. I've showed an animal last year as an adult. It was very interesting, but I've never been a judge before, but I had somebody approach me. It's like, you need to come judge the peewees. And I'm like, I have no idea what to do. They're like, you don't have to do anything. You get to feed the pigs some watermelon slices and ask the kids what their name is. And so anyway, I was trying to think of some smart aleck thing to ask the kids, or maybe, I don't know. It's going to be awesome. So you can come by and watch the peewee. It's going to be at 7:30 tonight at the pig barn at the fair. 4:30 tomorrow, Mary's going to be doing an animal or the monster cookie judging. So come by and check that.
Beauty.
Yeah, Rough Beauty. 2 years ago, I remember it was very interesting. I always pictured a monster cookie as, it's got M&Ms, chocolate chips, like
stuff.
oatmeal in it. It can be whatever. I remember the winner 2 years ago when I did it, it was a lemon. It was a lemon cookie.
Yep.
So anyway,
Is it just?
I envy you.
Giant.
Giant cookies.
You have to eat the whole thing, all of them? You might
No, you
get
just have to
some-
taste
Yeah.
it.
And then cleanse your palate. And
Right.
and then next Thursday is Chat with a Chair. I'm sure I'll see Linda there. 6 p.m. 6 p.m. at the Yamhill County Government Building, Government Services Building. Okay. Yeah. Now, when have I never been prepared for you? Okay.
I did.
Okay, I'm ready for you. I'm ready for you. That's right. Yeah. Commissioner Sterrett.
Super fan. You're a super fan, huh? Okay, great. Yes, Friday was a great parade in Dayton and Newburgh. That was always a wonderful parade in Newburgh. Got to see a lot of familiar faces along the parade route. A lot of people who work here were along the parade route. Talked about at the Affordable Housing Corporation, some really good news about a grant, a SIP grant, Housing Rehabilitation Program from Senator Merkley's office. It's unofficial, but it's made it into the bill. So that's through the Affordable Housing Corporation. The other thing is this Oregon Healthy Homes Program allows people who really have some serious renovation issues they can't afford to address. It pays for that. And it also allows for counseling and dealing with hoarding issues. So if you have somebody who's got a hoarding issue, they go in and they will inspect and then say, hey, this is an issue, and help them with counseling, with hoarding, with removal of that. It is a health issue. So that's been wonderful. As a matter of fact, the Church Street property that we've been sitting on, a voucher has been issued to the occupant, who is now turning the keys over today. So that property is going to get back on the rolls. The Chemeketa situation we had with some of the students in the early childhood education program. We had an additional meeting with the Dean of Education and worked out some of those issues yesterday. The local alcohol and drug policy committee meeting, we talked about new committee members, and we have folks from Recovery Northwest and our own CCO's behavioral health director on that now. Wanted to talk a little bit about the volunteer efforts at the fair. We've got CERT, SARS, we've got the cadets, and they're out there in the heat, and the and all of the folks that are sitting out there in the SARS trailer doing communications and ARIES. So I want to say a special thank you to them. And last night we spoke about, we talked a little bit about the Man Up program, which the sheriff addressed. And we were all pretty much part of that. But he was giving us some information about how this really does impact law enforcement. I mean, you've got a lot of crimes. You have sometimes murders. You have serious issues dealing with domestic violence and the children. So Juliet's House and Henderson House are integral parts in that. It was good to be part of that. Also at the fair, I watched something happen, which I think is really one of the good catch points at the fair, and that is HHS has a booth set up, and Sarah McGraw with HHS was interfacing with two recovering addicts, talking about the ability to come in off the street and get counseling. And this is one of those touch points you don't often have. That was pretty impressive. The foster kids in the REACH program are going around and taking full advantage of the free passes.
Cool.
And they're enjoying it. Also, some good news. We found out that FEMA is going to be issuing some of those EMPG grants, and we're going to be able to get that paid for, which is part of our emergency manager's funding for his office. And there are a couple of other grants that are still in the works, but it looks like the notice of opportunity for funding is actually happening, and we had our fingers crossed on this one. So A lot of good stuff happening this week.
Nice. I just want to finish off with, I didn't know our sheriff had collector's cards. So
It's rookie.
it's all wrapped in a nice little plastic envelope, but he really should have like arrest stats on the backers.
I thought you were gonna say recipes.
Yeah. Anyway, and I'm requesting one. This is Commissioner Stairs that she gave me, so.
No, they're at the fair. I saw them.
Or I'll go to the fair and grab
Okay,
one.
yeah.
They're probably out of them. I mean, they're probably pretty popular. You got anything, Ken? Okay. That'll close us out at 11:34. Thank you, everybody, for coming.